My name is Dale Wetzel. This is the Legislature Today radio show. We're coming to you from the Bismarck Peacock Alley American Bar and Grill, and we're doing this hour is sponsored by the North Dakota Ethanol Coalition and the North Dakota Corn Growers. We're going to be talking about ethanol and its salutary effects on North Dakota's economy. We have with us as guests this evening Mr. Jeff Zuger. He's the chairman of the North Dakota Ethanol Council and the general manager of Blue Flint Ethanol, which is a ethanol plant near Underwood, near the Coal Creek Power Station. We also have Mr. Randy Schneider of the North Dakota Ethanol Producers Association, and we have Mr. Vern Anderson, an animal scientist at the North Dakota State University Carrington Research Extension Center. Gentlemen, welcome. First of all, Mr. Anderson, can you tell us about how the ethanol industry benefits cattle feeding?
Distillers grains is really a foundational feed for most of the livestock in North Dakota. We've done a substantial amount of research throughout the Corn Belt and especially in North Dakota to prove its value. It has substantial protein and energy content that is useful in cattle, both cows and calves, and feedlot and dairy. It's useful in many other livestock scenarios, and it really is an excellent feed. It's very palatable, very digestible, very nutrient dense, and brings value to the diets of animals all over North Dakota.
Distillers grains, what is it about them that makes for good cattle feed?
First off, it's very nutrient dense. It has substantial amount of protein in it, so we use it in modest amounts because of the protein requirement that is met easily. It's also a very safe feed. Rumen digests this product very, very readily and very easily because it is a fiber. It doesn't interfere with the metabolism or the digestion of the forages that we feed most of our cattle. It's also an energy source. There's fat in it that brings energy to the animals, and essentially the value is greater than corn itself. Economic value in the diets of animals.
Mr. Zuger, how much distillers grain does the ethanol industry in North Dakota produce, and what is done with it?
Sure. Well, we're currently at about 400 million gallons worth of ethanol production in the state, and when we produce ethanol, we also get other valuable products because we just take the starch out of the corn, as Dr. Anderson just pointed out. And the other valuable components are still left in the corn. So we produce about 1 million tons of distillers grains in the state right now. We're currently exporting 80 to 90% of those tons out of the state. And there's a real substantial opportunity to grow the economy in the state of North Dakota around using these products in state as opposed to us shipping them to other destinations.
And when you mentioned you ship them elsewhere, where do they get shipped?
Essentially to large feed markets. Our particular facility is shipping products into Canada, large feed lots into the Canadian feed industry. Depending upon what rail you're located on in North Dakota, you may ship into Canada, you may ship into the West Coast, other large feed areas. You may ship south.
To what extent do we try to make things so that you don't have to ship the distiller's grain elsewhere? You can feed it to cattle in North Dakota.
Well, I think our story of how we've grown the ethanol industry in the state is maybe an example of, previous to the ethanol industry expansion in North Dakota, we were growing corn and we were exporting the vast majority of that corn to the Pacific Northwest, other destinations. By creating value by producing ethanol in the state, we've created 10,000 jobs, over $600 million of annual economic impact to the state. And I think distillers grains is really that next opportunity. We're still exporting all these distillers grains, and we've got to find a way to get economic growth around those. So to get large feed industries and processing, meat processing facilities to locate in this area and take advantage of this high-value, low-cost feed.
Mr. Schneider, how does one encourage the development of cattle feeding operations in North Dakota that can take advantage of this plentiful and beneficial feed source.
You bet. Again, just to add what Jeff was saying is again, it's really about growing animal agriculture in this state. And again, we produce 1 million calves in this state. A large or vast majority of those calves, along with the corn that we used to send, down south. That's where those calves go. And again, I think we can be as we evolve the ethanol industry, and as we take a look at the byproduct, dry distillers grains. To me, the next kind of paradigm shifter, the next opportunity that we have to grow North Dakota's economy is in growing that animal agriculture. And I think South Dakota is a great example, especially in the dairy industry, in the ruminant animals, whether it's feeding calves, beef calves, or again growing the dairy industry. I mean, they have created an I-29 corridor down there. And the South Dakota governor was out in Tulare, California. They have a huge ag expo out there. His reason for going out there is they were looking at developing or growing their dairy industry in the state, because they just recently have begun construction of a cheese plant in Brookings, South Dakota, $100 million investment in both building and equipment. This building is the size of 3 football fields. And, again, I think we can replicate, because in California, the regulatory environment that those dairy farmer or those dairymen have to live under is just unreal. I mean, I've read things that it's just mind-numbing, the rules that they have to deal with. So to me, that is a perfect opportunity to go market or at least interact with those dairy farmers and invite them to come to North Dakota, because I think we can replicate that same dairy corridor within North Dakota. Now, my opinion is you probably move that a little further west, maybe like the Highway 281 corridor, and begin to imagine, what, I think South Dakota needs to develop about 19,000 or find another 19,000 dairy cows to supply that cheese factory. Imagine 50,000 dairy cows on the 281 corridor, what that means. All of a sudden, we can do the same thing, maybe in Jamestown, North Dakota, build a cheese factory. And those dry distillers grains, 90% of which leave now, they're staying here, they're being value added. Those dry distillers grains now, from a paradigm shift perspective, they're now leaving this state in a reefer in the form of cheese. And I think that's, and the same thing with the beef cattle. I mean, again, let's have that dry distillers grain leave the state again in a reefer in the form of steaks. And I think we can develop that industry, because we now have that material here, and as Vern said, some of the best feed around.
Is the dairy industry a better prospect than the industry?
I think, to me, from my perspective, it's always going to be driven by, again, the bottom line. I mean, the dairy industry here a couple of years ago, I mean, they had it tough. I mean, again, the price of milk. But again, the way the dairy industry has evolved, I mean, you have robotics now milking cattle. And so, automation has helped drive down the cost of producing a gallon of milk. And we've seen milk prices come back up. I just think from the ethanol industry, a dairy industry means that there is a consistent animal that needs product every single solitary day. In a feedlot setting, there is more, there are times in the cycle where we just can't supply because the animals are off to slaughter. And so the dairy industry would really provide us that nice, consistent, so to speak, consumer of our product, the dairy animal, on a consistent basis. And that's what we're really looking for, because if we can do that, we can provide the best pricing for that dairyman or for that production agriculture or person that's in production agriculture.
Mr. Anderson, I'm really curious about why it is that distillers grains are such a good source of feed. Can you explain that? What makes it so magical? What makes it so great?
One of the key things in the beef and in the dairy industry, the high-producing cows, the fast-growing steers that we have today require what we call bypass protein, rumen that escapes digestion, and protein that escapes digestion in the rumen and is absorbed in the lower gut. And distillers grains is really our only economical source of that, to support that kind of genetic potential of growth and milk production that we have in the beef and the dairy. And as we talk about the quality of dairy, we talk about the quality of beef. As we get the dairy rolling and get those enterprises started, we have a large number of beef producers that feed some cattle. They're expanding their pens. They want to feed more cattle because we do have a terminal slaughter plant proximity of the state, very reachable, very economical. Looking for high-quality cattle that we have right here. This is the highest quality set of genetics of beef cattle in the nation right here in North Dakota. So we need the highest quality feed, the digestibility, the nutrient density, the safety of distillers' grains to feed these animals.
When you say that we have the best cattle genetics in the nation, I mean, what proof do you have of that? I mean, why do you say that?
The marbling scores reported by USDA. In Texas, the cattle slaughtered are about 55% choice. In Kansas, they're about 65% choice. In Nebraska, they're about 75% choice. And the cattle slaughtered in the Dakotas so far at the Aberdeen plant are 85% choice.
And why is that?
We have the British genetic base here that marbles. This is the high-value product that's paid for in the marketplace that the consumer wants, that this restaurant served us tonight. It's a phenomenal experience, as you all know. So we aspire to eating the best beef on the face of the earth, and we produce it right here in North Dakota.
As far as ethanol is concerned, the actual fuel, Mr. Zuger, what is the state of North Dakota doing to promote its use, and could it be doing more of that?
The state's actually done a very good job with the promotion of ethanol and to expand the use of ethanol within the state. We're a small gasoline pool as it relates to demand for overall product, so we can't make a huge dent with the production capacity that we have. But nonetheless, we've put a substantial amount of investment in flex fuel pumps. The state helped participate in that because of the value it brings back to the state to keep that product in state that's produced here. We've also done things along the way by way of marketing and education to really help folks with flex fuel vehicles understand that their vehicle can safely, efficiently, and in an environmentally friendly manner use our products at higher levels, mid-level blends to higher level blends. So I think we've really done a great job educating and promoting ethanol. Now our next challenge is to educate and promote and try and find beneficial use in the state for our co-products, distillers' grains, and we also produce corn oil.
One of the things that I wanted to get into a bit was recently you had the legislature approved a checkoff program for the ethanol industry, and I think it still might be the only one in the country. And can you and Mr. Schneider talk about what's been done with the money raised by this program and whether or not it's being mimicked elsewhere?
Well, yeah, as you point out, we as producers in the state looked at how do we continue to educate, expand, enhance, and bring more value to our industry. The folks that are involved at the 4 plants are busy running the business of producing ethanol, so we needed to pool our resources together so that we could have a bigger voice and have people such as our executive director, Dina Weezy, out there helping us promote, educate, and advance our industry. So it was we pay as producers 3/100ths of a cent per gallon that we produce, and that money goes then towards this ethanol promotion council or ethanol council in North Dakota, and it is the only one of its type in the country.
Sorry, go ahead, sir.
Yeah. You know, Dale, just to add what Jeff said, I think we've really been very strategic about how we're going about this. And as we develop and have grown this industry in the state, there are a lot of opportunities ahead of us, I think, to help grow North Dakota's economy. And Jeff is right. I mean, again, no one else is doing what we're doing here, and it's allowed us to, again, pool up some dollars. And in conjunction with that, again, we're, legislatively this year, we're working with both the House and the Senate to, again, find some permanent funding for the Renewable Energy Council that helps take a look at opportunities, research projects, and look at how we can find some additional value for our product. And I think now, we're really, once we get the permanent funding, and one of the other things we're looking at doing legislatively is working together with the Petroleum Council. We're asking the House and Senate to help finance a market study for both traditional fuels and renewable fuels to begin looking at other opportunities to value add. And I think we're now poised with what we're doing with checkoff, with hopefully, again, the permanent funding of Renewable Energy Council, that we can begin looking at what I like to call building North Dakota's new economy. And, right now we're producing, just as we do with cattle, we put what we don't consume in the state, we put on a rail car and we have it leave the state. And my way of thinking is let's make a paradigm shift here. Let's look at building North Dakota's new economy by taking that ethanol. And ethanol is a carbon. And at the end of the day, can we look at other opportunities? And I know they're looking at the University of Cambridge in England. They're using ethanol as a carbon feedstock to make nanofibers. Now, Dale, begin to imagine the opportunity we have in this state with taking ethanol and using it as a carbon feedstock to build, again, using ferrocene and some other chemicals to, produce nanofibers that can build tires that never go flat or drill bits that never go dull, and that our ethanol is not leaving on a rail car, but it's leaving in the back end of a drive-in. And look at the economic development opportunities that creates for North Dakota. And again, the checkoff system, the permanent funding of the Renewable Energy Council, I think, and hopefully again with the market study, we're going to begin to look at those opportunities to again value add, make a paradigm shift, value add ethanol, and industrialize that product to something other than fuel. And that opportunity, I think, can begin right here in North Dakota. And that literally, in my opinion, would mean billions and billions of dollars of economic growth, economic development for North Dakota. And our brothers and sisters on the traditional side have that same opportunity with natural gas. And that's why I like to say that we need to begin looking at building North Dakota's new economy, making this paradigm shift, and beginning that journey of value adding. And I know we can do it. And this is the perfect place to do it here in North Dakota.
Mr. Zuger and Mr. Schneider, I want you to address this too. I just want to know precisely what it is that the checkoff money is used for. Is it used for industry promotion? Is it used for research? What is it used for?
Yeah, actually, all the above. We've participated with others, like the North Dakota corn growers, in doing surveys to understand better purchasing habits and what would drive somebody towards using our product. Marketing efforts, so directly educating flex fuel vehicle owners, getting information out to retailers, which are the actual sellers of our product. Unfortunately, we're not the ones in front of the customer selling our product, so we're trying to educate retailers, trying to educate the automotive industry around what is a flex fuel vehicle, so that when somebody comes onto the lot and starts asking about it, they have good information to give consumers around flex fuel vehicles, and that hopefully after they choose that flex fuel vehicle, they go out and choose our product, higher level ethanol blend. So a lot of good work around just promotion, education, and enhancing our industry.
Just to add what Jeff said, Dale, is again, we've really been, I think, very strategic about what we're doing, and one of which is, again, is we needed to make sure that we addressed all the opportunity for ethanol in North Dakota. And again, is we really have been, I think, very surgical in looking at all the owners of flex fuel vehicles, and that has grown tremendously. Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've grown from about 29,000 to about 67,000 flex fuel vehicles. And so we wanted to make sure that all the ethanol we produced, that we met the needs of those consumers. And we've got efforts underway to accomplish that. But again, as we all know, we're an exporting state. We just don't have enough drivers to consume everything. So now, again, as we go through this evolutionary process, now we begin to kind of take a look and make some paradigm shifts and look at some other opportunities to, again, is to value add, industrialize that ethanol, and looking at completely things, other than fuel. And those opportunities exist out there. And again, we have a very innovative industry in this state. And again, and the research platforms to begin looking at, what are those opportunities. And from my perspective, I have the privilege of sitting on the Renewable Energy Council, and I see a lot of research projects. I'm truly amazed at the research assets of this state and the capabilities we have in this state and all of the universities, whether it's NDSU, UND, or any of the other institutions that we have. And that research can happen here. And like I said, I'd love to see us one of these days take ethanol and spin nanofibers out of it and swing a dry van door shut as a tire is headed on the way to Akron, Ohio.
Tell me what a nanofiber is.
A nanofiber is a very small, thin fiber that can be woven into like a Kevlar. Again, it's just a like fiberglass in any of the like some of the wind turbine blades that we produce. It's a material that has strength properties beyond belief. Yeah.
And what is it about ethanol that can be used to produce nanofibers?
Nanofibers, again, as we always need to start with a carbon feedstock, and again, ethanol is that carbon feedstock. And again, there's the chemistry, and it's been a long time since I've had chemistry, but again, is that again is the source of the raw material that we start with as we begin the journey of producing that raw material. And we would look at ethanol as being that.
And as far as research, I mean, is the checkoff money financing this type of research into nanofibers?
Not that research in particular. We do strategic planning every year, and that is certainly on our radar. You're talking about some pretty robust type of research there. We're trying to help facilitate, enable, provide resources to both research institutes as well as private industry that would be researching this for beneficial use.
You mentioned earlier educating flex fuel owners. Educate them in what sense?
Well, there's a lot of misconceptions, misunderstandings around the use of higher level blends of ethanol, E20, E30, E85. So we want to make sure that folks understand that flex fuel vehicles are made for flexible fuels. So that means that they've been designed to use these fuels. Those fuels will not cause harm to their engines. We want them to try mid-level blends such as E30 so that they see that on a cost per mile, they're actually going to save money. And there's some misnomers out there that you're actually going to lose money or it's going to cost you more per mile. So to get people to try this product, find that they can use it safely, they can use it efficiently, and it actually will lower their cost per mile for driving.
What is it? How is a vehicle that's run on E85, how is it different from a vehicle that's run on gasoline?
Sure.
How does they differ?
Yeah, the automotive manufacturers put components in the fuel management system as well as in the emission control systems that are essentially made to handle some of the challenges that are unique to ethanol. If ethanol combines with water, it can become somewhat corrosive under different materials. So the vehicles are manufactured in a way that they safely and efficiently can use ethanol and not have any challenges in doing so.
We've been speaking to Jeff Zuger. He's the chairman of the North Dakota Ethanol Council and the general manager of Blue Flint Ethanol near Underwood. We also have with us Mr. Randy Schneider of the North Dakota Ethanol Producers Association and Mr. Vern Anderson, an animal scientist at the North Dakota State University Research Extension Center at Carrington. We're talking about the ethanol industry and its salutary effects, and we'll be back shortly to continue our conversation. I don't know if I was the only one having it, but
no,
he was the only one talking at the
Today
time,
radio show live.
but you could hear
Never
it.
fear, you can always watch it or listen online at GreatPlainsNews.com. That's our website, GreatPlainsNews.com. And don't forget, we're live Saturdays, 10 a.m. to noon, all across
from him
state
twice.
of North Dakota on the voice of the Northern Plains, 550 K-Fire,
seems
AM
good
1100
now,
The Flag,
there's not a problem now,
AM
but
1090
I hadn't
The
actually
Flag
touched
in the
anything up
Bucket.
there.
Legislature Today radio show. Now back to more of the program and your host, Dale Wetzel.
Good evening. This is Dale Wetzel. I'm the host of the Legislature Today radio program. We're talking about ethanol, distillers' grains, and the economic future of the North Dakota ethanol industry. We're coming to you from the Peacock Alley American Bar and Grill in downtown Bismarck, North Dakota. And we are speaking this evening to Mr. Jeff Zuger, the chairman of the North Dakota Ethanol Council and the general manager of the Blue Flint ethanol plant near the Coal Creek Station near Underwood in west central North Dakota. We also have with us Mr. Randy Schneider of the North Dakota Ethanol Producers Association and Mr. Vern Anderson, an animal scientist at the North Dakota State University Carrington Research Extension Center. Mr. Anderson, could you please tell us what is it about this? First of all, what sort of feed options do you have if you're feeding cattle, whether beef cattle or dairy cattle, and how do distillers' grains rank as a quality feed amongst the other choices that a producer would have?
North Dakota produces so many different feeds. We have a smorgasbord available to the cattle, and that's part of our research program at Carrington. We've looked at a lot of different feeds, and time and again, when I look at the cheapest cost of protein and the cheapest cost of energy compared to all the other feeds that we purchase, distillers' grains, whether it's wet or the dry form, comes in as the lowest cost protein source virtually every time. And so if a cattleman or dairyman or a hogman needs a little protein, this is the logical place to go to buy his feed product, so he gets the nutrient density. He doesn't have the fiber that dilutes the rest of the minerals and the energy, so he can buy and feed smaller amounts very economically when he purchases distillers' grains.
What's the difference between wet distillers' grain and dry?
Well, it comes from the plant in two different forms. If it's shipped on the train and exported, it's dried down, so the shelf life is longer. Sometimes producers can go to the plants and pick up a moist product, and it has two levels of moisture. It's either 35% dry or 50% dry, and both of those are more palatable because during the drying process you actually drive off a modest amount of the energy, and so the most economical nutrition is to buy a wet product, and obviously you're hauling a little bit of water, so the closer you are to the ethanol plant, the more advantageous it is to use the wet product. And so we look at the relative value compared to, say corn as our base energy source. Oftentimes we're 140% the value of corn at distillers grains. And depending on the prices, and they rotate obviously or flex up and down, so that range runs from 120 to 140% consistently. So this is a bargain to buy this product when it's worth that much more per unit of protein and per unit of energy than any other feed we have in North Dakota.
And what you mentioned earlier about something about phosphorus. Can you tell me the significance of that?
Well, North Dakota is an agronomy state. We grow crops and we export them, and with that we export a substantial amount of phosphorus. And distillers grains is high in phosphorus, which the cattle need, and when we export distillers grains, we're exporting the phosphorus. Phosphorus is mined in the earth and shipped in to replace that, but we have a finite supply in the world. And as we export the grains, we will at some point have to import phosphorus. And if we can develop our livestock industry here to use the grains and the distillers products that we have and feed the cattle here, hogs, dairy, beef, we will retain that phosphorus and use it in a biologically sustainable system, both economically and biologically sustainable to our communities and to our producers. So integrated crop livestock integration, or a community that has crop producers and beef producers that live next door to each other and share the resource of the land.
What is this? I mean, phosphorus, what is the significance of it? I'm a little unclear on that.
Phosphorus is a mineral that is required by you and I and bones and teeth and to help us metabolize all the other nutrients that we take in. And so it's absolutely critical. It's an expensive mineral to supplement. When we buy phosphorus in a bag from a feed store, it's much less expensive to buy it in the form of a distiller's grains product and include that in our ration. We have to buy no supplemental phosphorus when we use distiller's grains. So dairy cattle especially require substantial amounts of phosphorus. So,
Mr. Schneider, you were talking earlier about value added and the importance of that, and also about chemicals that can be derived from ethanol. What sort of chemicals can be derived from ethanol?
Well, I again is because I mean ethanol is basically a carbon, and again is the the feedstock for the manufacture of a lot of things that we consume in this country or in this world. And I guess my best example of that again is as I mentioned earlier again are the nanofibers. And that is certainly a growing industry in this world. And the nice thing about it is the Red River research corridor. One of the things that they're looking at doing in that part of North Dakota is with nanofibers. And so to me, if we can begin taking a look at the possibility, and I think also again looking at if we can collaborate. I think from my vantage point, it'd be great if, again, we could develop a research platform at North Dakota State University, as an example, to look at all the opportunities that we have to value add ethanol and begin building these relationships, as I mentioned earlier, at the University of Cambridge. If NDSU and University of Cambridge could look at working together to take a look at, and share the work that they have done. See if we can enhance that research and look at commercializing it, because we also want to be and that's why I think again that $500,000 research dollars are going to be so valuable, both not only to traditional energy but also to the renewable, because that allows us to again point us I think in the right direction where the largest commercial opportunities exist, because research starts at bench, moves to pilot, and then ultimately to commercialization. And the last thing we want to do, certainly we have dollars with our checkoff system. We have the Renewable Energy Council, hopefully permanent funding of that. But at the end of the day, those are still finite resources, and so I think if we're going to begin a journey of looking at industrializing ethanol, we want to make sure we're pointed in the right direction, and the projects that have the greatest opportunity for commercial success. And I think one of those early ones that I think need research is going to be the one that I've talked about again, is the nanofiber project. But there are a lot of others. I mean, again, specialty fuels, other chemicals, and there are certain plants that are making the conversion from the production of ethanol to other specialty chemicals. But I'd like to, again, from my perspective, I'd really like to. I think our industry is really even drill deeper than that. I mean, again, is there something where we can really value add the ethanol in the state? It's one thing to take an ethanol plant, convert it into some other chemical, and then still put that product on a rail car and have it leave. From my perspective, I think we need to really begin making a significant paradigm shift and looking at drilling it all the way to the end product of producing something. As I've said, that leaves this state on the back end of a dry van as we begin this journey of building North Dakota's new economy.
Mr. Zuger, what is the health of North Dakota's ethanol industry when it's compared to other states? And are there regional differences in the health of the ethanol industry? And if there are, what are the reasons for those differences?
Sure. The industry in North Dakota is very strong. When you compare it to some of the turndown that we've seen in our industry, we've got a capacity of about 15 billion gallons. We're currently running at about less than 80% production capacity as an industry. And in the state of North Dakota, we're running near full production capacity. We have availability of corn. We have relative proximity to strong markets, so moving products into Canadian markets, moving products into robust markets that are close or have good freight opportunities for our facilities. And I think the most important thing is each one of these plants has strategic advantages. So when the plants were located, they were located in manners that were very strategic to allow the businesses to be successful. Now, if you take that and you look at what are the future opportunities to kind of maybe expand upon some of the things Randy's been talking about, these biorefineries, these ethanol production facilities, are some of the most efficient biorefineries in the world at taking a carbon product, the starch in corn, which is a carbon-based product, and converting it into a valuable carbon commodity, so in the form of ethanol. They do that very efficiently. They do it very consistently. They do it in a quality manner, environmentally friendly manner. The next steps for our industry could be chemical pre-searches, ethylene, ethyl acetate, so higher value products from ethanol, or things such as producing isobutanol, which too is another renewable-based fuel. So there's all kinds of pathways to higher value. Now, if we can take those higher value products and do something with them in the state of North Dakota, now we've taken the ethanol industry example and compounded it.
Ethylene and isobutanol, what are those used for? What do you make out of it?
Yeah, ethylene is a precursor to a lot of chemical process, polyethylene, which would be a plastic component, precursor to a lot of traditionally petroleum-based products from ethylene. Isobutanol is actually a renewable fuel that is compatible to move right into the fuel stream, and there's a lot of development going on around isobutanol as well.
Mr. Anderson, I wanted to revisit the subject of distiller's grain for a moment. How does one control the quality of distiller's grain? Is it that difficult, and how important is it that be done?
It's critical that we have a consistent product from load to load and week to week. And in the plants we have in North Dakota, there's a lot of good quality control, and so we are very pleased with the consistency of that product. Unlike other plants in other regions of the country where sulfur fluctuates and the moisture fluctuates and things go up and down to mess up cattle on feed, if you will. We have people running the plants in North Dakota that know their business, and they produce that kind of a consistent quality product that we in the cattle feeding business seek and appreciate.
And when we talk about consistency in what?
Consistency of the nutrients, consistency of the chemicals in, like sulfur. The sulfur level is low and consistently low. Protein level is the same from load to load. Fat content is the same. Moisture content, critical. Very consistent depending on the product you procure. So it really is good to have that kind of careful management. The plant managers recognize that this is an important factor for livestock, that you can't screw up on the changes in the process. So we have to have that consistency to have good productive livestock.
Mr. Zuger, I wanted to visit a moment about some of the unique aspects of the plants in North Dakota. And first of all, you're up by the Coal Creek Station. How does this give you more efficiencies in manufacturing and a competitive advantage?
Sure. Our facility in particular takes steam that's very low in its life cycle value in the power production process. So essentially it's getting to where it's a waste product in the way of steam. And we use that in our production facility as the energy source, the thermal source for the ethanol production process. That allows us to have a low-cost energy source as well as a lower life cycle carbon footprint for the fuel that we're producing, because we're taking low-value energy and we're using it in our process. It also gives us, when you talk about quality controls, one of the things from a manufacturing process, and these are manufacturing facilities, is consistent production. So we've got 4 levels of redundancy in our energy supply at our particular facility, which ensures that we have on-stream time, we have availability of energy, so we're not moving our plant's production up and down, which can cause characteristics to change in the products that you're producing. You look at some of the other facilities, such as the facility out near Richardson, Red Trail, taking coal as the energy source there, so that the coal is traditionally a more stable, low-cost energy source than natural gas. Until recently, natural gas became very competitive.
Yes.
But nonetheless, the model was built around long-term, stable energy costs. When you look at that facility, we and the facility at Red Trail also have dryers that dry at much lower temperatures, so we produce distillers grains that aren't exposed to high levels of heat. And when you talk about the other facilities in North Dakota, they've got other real strategic advantages that really focus on ensuring that you produce a quality product, taking advantage of the local opportunities that are there, like Tharaldson's facility taking wastewater from the city of Fargo and using that in their process. So each facility kind of has its own strengths and its own unique characteristics that give it a very robust, strong business plan and should ensure that these plants are here long term.
Mr. Anderson, Mr. Zuger just mentioned the salutary effects of having distiller's grain exposed to less heat. Can you elaborate on why that's important?
It's important because as we add heat, we drive off some of the volatile fatty acids that actually ruminant cattle can use as energy sources. And the more heat and the higher the heat level, the greater we drive off those energy sources. So if we can just leave it cool and moist, we like that. We do alter the protein slightly when we add heat to distiller's grains to increase the bypass. So there is a little bit of value in that heat when we look at the high-producing dairy and the fast-growing beef cattle that we use this product for. So it isn't all bad adding the heat. We do create an opportunity to take advantage of that.
I have to ask you this. You use the term ruminant, and explain what ruminant means. What is a ruminant animal?
A ruminant animal is a cloven-hoofed animal with essentially 4 stomachs. Dairy cows, beef cattle, sheep are the ones that we know around here. We can go into bison and some other minor species if we really want to, but the rumen is a big fermentation vat, and it takes fibrous feed materials, alfalfa hay, straw, grass, and it digests them through the work of protozoa and bacteria that live in the gut in an anaerobic environment. So it's a relatively hostile environment with billions and billions of microbes. And from there on, the feed material is digested and flows into the lower stomach, which is essentially a true stomach like ours, and then on into the gut. So it's a pre-digester, if you please, if you're using engineering terms, in order to allow that cow to live on things that you and I would starve to death on.
Mr. Schneider, you talked at some length about the need for the next generation economy in North Dakota and ways that ethanol can help bring that about. Aside from research, what sorts of business factors are necessary to encourage the development of what you would like to see?
You bet. Dale, I think it really, again, we had mentioned earlier a little bit about as we begin to take a look at where those opportunities are at, it's a matter of being very strategic about what we go after. Again, all research projects start at a bench, work their way to pilot, and ultimately commercialization. And I think it's, and that's why I mentioned earlier, I think some of those dollars for that market study are going to be so important, because that, I think, is really going to help us, at least I believe, point us in the right direction. Again, taking a look at where is that best opportunity, where is the the limited dollars we have, and what product do we have to begin looking at doing. And as I said earlier, I mean, again, I am really proud of, and I have, like I said, I've seen the research, the strategic research assets of the state and the facilities and the people, and they do exist here. This research doesn't need to get shipped out of state; it can happen right here. And once we can kind of get pointed in the right direction, we then can begin that research and allow that to move again from bench to pilot to commercialization. And from my perspective, again, I think we, and again, Jeff made a very good point. Maybe there's a middle step that we have to take yet. But I think ultimately, as we begin this visioning process, as we begin making this paradigm shift, I mean, ultimately, I really would hope that we can evolve this industry, help be part of growing North Dakota's economy, and have that ethanol that we today see leave this state every single day in the form of a rail car, leave in the back end of dry van, because we've taken that ethanol and we've made like I said, a tire that's on its way to Akron, Ohio, to be put on an automobile that's manufactured in this state. And I think we can do that in our lifetime.
I mean, is there say, for example, is there a shortage of capital? Are there tax obstacles to developing these new industries? I'm thinking about that sort of thing.
You bet. A great question, Dale. I think that's why I come back to North Dakota again, is I think we really have, from my perspective, we have the best business climate, we have the best regulatory, legal, and taxing and business environment right here to do that research. So I think it's a matter of first of all, we had to build the industry that we have today. I'm very proud of what Jeff and his colleagues and all the other plants have accomplished. I mean, as Jeff mentioned earlier, this corn used to get put on a rail car and leave this state. I mean, today, most of the corn we produce in this state gets to stay here and gets to be value added. I mean, that's phenomenal. Now we have to take what we've accomplished to date, and it has been significant, and we have to take a look at what is our next step. Again, why do we have to think that those dry distillers grains have to leave this state? Make that paradigm shift, and it was what Vern was talking about. How come it can't leave the state in a reefer in the form of cheese and beef? How come that ethanol has to leave in the form of a rail car? How come it can't, maybe leave in as we step our way to something more value added, from some specialty chemical, ultimately onto a product, a plastic or whatever, or a product that is shipped. So I think we've been able to form the capital we needed to get to where we're at today. I think North Dakota has the best environment in which to now go to the next step, and I think as we can prove to the world that we've been very surgical and strategic in what it is we're looking at and value adding, I think those dollars will begin to formulate or whatever, and we can start building other industries in this state. One
of the things that comes up with the development of the oil industry in particular is that North Dakota has been an agricultural state since its founding. Are we becoming more of an industrial state, and to what extent is that a good thing, or what can we do to encourage it?
You bet. Dale, I think you're spot on, because again, let's take a look at agriculture. I mean, to me, the best example is Durham. I mean, when this state got founded, what do? We put that durum, we raised it here, we put it on a rail car and went down to Minneapolis. Eventually we figured out, well, maybe we can value add that. We started making semolina. You and I both know today in Carrington, North Dakota, where Vern is from, they're raising durum, making semolina, making pasta, putting it in a cardboard box and shipping it to the rest of the world. So we've taken that agricultural commodity and we industrialized it. I think we can do that same thing both with the traditional fuels and the renewables. And to me, we've got the perfect example of how to do it. And we need to look no further than the middle of the state, Carrington, North Dakota, on how we can do it. And I know if we put our mind to it and we create a vision of what we need to do, we'll get it done.
how does Mr. Zuger and Mr. Anderson, do you see North Dakota having more of an industrial future?
I think there's opportunities to take a lot of the co-products we have and mix them together and to make feed manufacturers prosperous here. Distillers grains is the heart and soul of that because of the nutrient density and the palatability and all the other things we've talked about. But we are the breadbasket for feed. We don't have enough cattle to use more than 10% of the feed we produce. So industrializing and feed manufacture, possibly industrializing and processing of cattle. We have modest improvements in the scale there, but we have a packing plant just across the border to our south that is scaling up and would be a terminal market for an awful lot of cattle fattened in North Dakota.
Do you think that, Mr. Zuger, do you think North Dakota has more of an industrial future than might have been envisioned 15 or 20 years ago?
I sure do. As we develop the resources that are here in our state, particularly with traditional resources as well as renewable resources, we continue to discover opportunities for those resources. So we convert them into one form or fashion and then find opportunity for that. And as we can continue to produce products of higher value, find opportunity for those, and advance those opportunities within the state, I think we can continue to grow industrially as a state. We also have just high-quality workforce in the state, very skilled, high work ethic individuals that really add to the value of the facilities that we have. So we're really proud of the folks that work in our facilities, and I think that the quality of the people will also help get us there.
We've been speaking to Mr. Jeff Zuger. He's the chairman of the North Dakota Ethanol Council. He's the gentleman whose voice you just heard. He is also the general manager of the Blue Flint Ethanol Plant near Underwood in west central North Dakota. We have also been speaking this evening with Mr. Vern Anderson. He's an animal scientist at the North Dakota State University Carrington Research Extension Center. And also we've been talking to Mr. Randy Schneider of the North Dakota Ethanol Producers Association. This has been our Agriculture Hour on the North Dakota Legislature Today program, and these gentlemen have been generous enough to sponsor our show. Thank you very much.
I'm Steve Dace. We immediately think this reporter